All right, welcome back to class. Make sure my mic is on. Okay, is it working?
No.
No.
Yeah. There.
Now is it working?
Yep. No.
Now is it working?
Yeah.
Here we go. All right, welcome to class. Today we are reading Top Secret. We are ready for chapter 6. But does anyone remember what happened last week? It's been a while. Eric, what happened?
He turned green.
All right.
And went to the doctor's office.
Alan turned green. He went to the doctor. The doctor said, well, it must be an allergy. It's not contagious. Go to school. And that's where we had an issue. Angie, what happened at school?
He went to the class and everything, saw him and then she was like, oh, wash it off. And then Alan was like, then she said, and don't come back until you wash it off. So I think he might not ever go to school.
Yeah. Hudson?
Also, his dad was forcing him to eat breakfast, and he was trying to explain why he didn't eat because he's like, I'm already eating. I'm eating from the sun.
Okay, so when he eats now, what happens? He has a reaction. Madeline?
He won't eat it because he needs like what plant?
Yeah, it causes him to throw up. He can't swallow. He cannot eat. And what's up with the sun? He has a pretty strange thing going with the sun. Cadence?
He's like, he feels so good.
Yeah. So I think all of us think the sun can feel good. Not when we're too hot, but it can feel really good. But he is in the sun. It's totally different, right? He is in the sun, obsessed with how it feels, like a plant. Okay. We are ready for chapter 6. Can you believe it? I had a project that was sure to win the silver trophy. Not to mention, Miss Green would probably get voted best science teacher. And what happens? She won't even listen to me. I also had another problem. Miss Green had told me not to come back until I had washed off the green paint. Except it wasn't green paint, and I didn't know how to change myself back. As I walked home, I decided there was only one thing for me to do. I had to figure out a way to prove to Miss Green what I had done. What else could I do? But how, I asked myself. How do you prove something to somebody? Why, even my own folks didn't believe me. What are folks? Hayden?
People.
Yes, and in this case, Madeline, what are they talking about? His parents. My own folks don't even believe me, or the doctor who examined me. Telling them obviously didn't work. Even seeing me didn't convince anyone. There must be some way. People believed certain things and they didn't believe other things. Why? What made the difference? It was a long walk home, but I didn't mind. I had to think. I stopped at the park in the center of town and sat on a bench by the lake so I could watch the ducks. I put my lunch pail on my knees and opened it. Mom had packed me a big lunch because I hadn't eaten any breakfast. As expected, I still wasn't hungry. I had no appetite at all. I didn't have to eat anymore. All I needed was sunlight and water. I was making my own food internally, just as a plant does. I had become a human plant. I suddenly became very thirsty. I hurried over to the drinking fountain and drank for about 5 minutes. When I had finished, I noticed that 3 people had lined up behind me. They seemed startled when they saw my green face. Just paint, I told them. They all looked relieved. How funny, I thought. They believed something that wasn't true without questioning it. But if I had told them the truth, they wouldn't have believed me no matter what I had said. Now, isn't that a funny concept? It's kind of like what our minds think to be true. It's hard to change that, right? If you expect that people shouldn't be green and you see someone who is green, you're going to try to think of a logical explanation, which for me, you can paint yourself. I don't really know any other way to make yourself green.
I want to be painted green.
Hi, I'm a plant. Watch me eat sunlight. Now, let me ask you, who was going to believe that? I had to figure out a way to prove it. That's all there was to it. I continued walking home, thinking hard. I passed shops and restaurants and service stations. I passed the City Hall and the Plaza Hotel and the Daily Courier newspaper building. The newspaper? Something had happened a few days ago. It was at breakfast. Mom and Dad were having an argument about something. I don't remember what. Hey, how do you know that? My mom had said. It says so right here in the newspaper, my father had answered. So that was it. If I could somehow get my story in the newspaper, that would be all the proof I'd need. Miss Green would believe me, and so would my parents, and so would everybody. I tucked in my shirt, pushed open the heavy glass doors with both hands, and walked into the newspaper building. Why do you think Alan tucked in his shirt first? Noah? Yeah, so if you want to look really nice and impress someone, your appearance does matter a little bit, right? You don't want to look sloppy. Okay, so I walked into the newspaper building. You're a what? I'm a plant. A what? P-L-A-N-T? I spelled it out for the bald-headed man who wore Coke bottle glasses. Those are just the really round ones. And who sat behind a desk that was so piled up with papers I could barely see him. The sign on his office door had said, Features Editor. I know it's hard to believe, I continued, but please hear me out. My dad's expression worked because the man kept quiet and let me talk. Halfway through my story, he stopped me. He took out a small tape recorder from his desk and had me start over. When I had finished, the editor pressed a button and spoke into a small plastic box on his desk. Miss Padilla, he said, get me a photographer and hurry. He looked at me over the tops of the piles of the papers on his desk. Do I have a beauty for tomorrow's feature? So is he going to publish a story?
Mm-hmm.
That's what he says. Hudson?
I accidentally spilled my drink because the straw just shot out.
Come on over. I'll throw over here. I don't have my mask. All right. So I will show you right here, kids at home, there's a little space. So when you're reading a chapter and there's a little space, does anyone know what that means? Eric?
That's a paragraph.
Yeah, but some paragraphs have a space between them. Does anyone know what that means? Madeline?
It's because like you're starting a new day or something.
Yeah, time has passed. So you either quit that scene or you start a new day. So we know he's gone home because now he's talking to Grandpa. Yes?
It's kind of like on movies when they're starting a new day, like when they close their eyes, it's like black for a little while, then it's
Yeah, yep, and then the scene's open again. The editor believed me, I told Grandpa when I got home. My story will be in tomorrow's morning newspaper. Everyone will believe me now. Grandpa didn't seem very excited. Don't worry about other people, he told me. It's not important what they think. Well, you don't have Miss Green for 4th grade science, I told him. The next morning, I put on my robe and went out to the driveway to wait for the newspaper. It's supposed to be delivered at 6 o'clock. It was right on time. I opened up the paper, and sure enough, there I was in living color, right on the front page of Section 3. It wasn't a bad picture either. I was smiling, my hands high in the air. I put the newspaper on the kitchen table in Dad's place so he wouldn't miss it. Everything was set. All I had to do was wait. Would you look at this, my father said as he sat down at the table, picking up the wrong section of the newspaper. The president is coming to our city next week. Do you mean the president of the United States? Asked my mother. The one and only says so right here. Well, what on earth for? Says here he's going to be talking with members of an organization called SWS, Stop World Starvation. You know, the group the Applegates wanted us to join. I wanted to scream. Why do you think Alan wanted to scream? Angie?
His dad was supposed to see it and think he was thinking that he couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I was gonna believe it.
Yeah. How did you not see my article? There was my face right there in plain sight, right in front of my father, and he didn't see it. All he could talk about was the president and that group Peggy Applegate's parents belonged to. Be patient, I told myself. He'll see it. Give him time. My dad continued reading about the president. Alan, my mother asked me, do you feel like eating breakfast? I don't want you getting sick again. Just a glass of water, Mom. And then my father saw it. I could tell because the scrambled eggs he had just put into his mouth came tumbling out onto his plate. He didn't say anything for the longest time. Then he just looked at me and said, Tell me, it isn't true, Alan. It is, Dad. You can read it right there in the newspaper. My father picked up the paper and read the headline aloud. Human plant eats only sunlight. The amazing true story of Alan Brewster. He handed the newspaper to my mother. What are the neighbors going to say? And the guys at the office? Oh, Alan, said my mom when she saw the paper. What have you done? I've proved it. That's what I've done. I've got it in the newspaper. Now you believe me, don't you? Now I have a question before we move on. Is every single article you read in the newspaper or on TV, anywhere on the news, just because it's there, does that mean it's true?
No.
Chloe? No. Sometimes do people put opinions in the news? Almost always. So when you read a newspaper story, sometimes there are facts, but a lot of times it's full of opinions and other types of news. Let's see what his dad said. Listen to me, Alan, said my father, rubbing the back of his neck like he's, frustrated. And listen good. Every week this newspaper features some sensational story. Last week it was some minister getting ready to rise to heaven. The poor man had sold his house and everything. They'll do it to sell newspapers. It doesn't prove a thing. It doesn't? No. In fact, it makes it worse. You mean Miss Green won't believe me either? Nobody in their right mind will believe you. And furthermore, I'm sick and tired of hearing about your discovery. I'm sick and tired of you not eating your meals. You're a 9-year-old boy like all other 9-year-old boys. You are not a plant. The discussion is closed. Do I make myself clear? Yes, I said, very clear. And that's the end of chapter 6. All right, we will read chapter 7 tomorrow. See you all later.